everyone, my name is Shelby and this is the YouTube series where I reveal what's inside these mystery pottery molds I found on Gumtree. Hello everyone and welcome to part 24, and if I can say anything before we start is that this was one of the funnest molds to paint so far. I've had a lot of fun with all of them, but this one just had a special spot in my heart. So it's a 3-piece mold. On the outside I could kind of tell that there was going to be like a round detail because of the shape, but I opened it up to reveal a little mini van. So I'm getting hippie van vibes. I'm really excited to paint some florals on one. So I sponge it all down and make sure that it's clean from all the debris, all the dust, because we don't want that in the clay and getting poured back in to be reused in the big clay bucket I tip it back into. So I put all the pieces together, add a rubber band, elastic to hold it tight, and then I pour it. So this one needed 2 of my little jugs to fill it, and I didn't realize that at the time, otherwise I would have had one prepared, but I quickly poured one up. And it was really cool finishing the pour in this one because all the little 4 holes sort of filled right up and they're like little clay bubbles. And I don't know why I thought that was really cool, because I think I just didn't really expect it to fill up in those 4 holes, or whether I had to sort of top up those little holes, but it was really cool watching it rise. So I tipped this one out and it held so much clay, like it had a lot of clay in it, so it had to drip out for quite some time. All the little wheel holes were dripping out and the big hole was dripping out, so it's going to be a challenge to glaze, I think. So with setting the clay, I get this question a lot. I generally leave it in there for about half an hour depending on the piece, and then I tip out the excess like you just saw, and then I sort of leave it depending on the weather. It's quite warm when I poured this, so it was a couple of hours, but usually in the winter I'll leave it for a day before I open it back up. You can usually tell because you can see in that center hole the clay is sort of lifting away from the plaster. When it starts to come away from the plaster, that's when you sort of know that it's getting to a point of being ready. It's not always the best guide, but it's one that I generally use, and you can kind of you get a feel for the clay over time as to how hard it is. So it was quite leather hard, almost leather hard when I was cutting this away, so I checked just via touch. So that's something that's really hard to explain over a YouTube or over a video, but that's sort of how I know when it's ready. So right here I'm just cutting off those little wheel marks, so when that poured to the top it was for excess clay so that the wheel would be complete and for the excess air to escape from the wheels so that they're nice and solid and a nice round shape. So I cut those little spouts off, and then I was able to actually pull the 2 parts together to reveal the vans in their complete state. So these are freaking groovy. I'm really excited. I don't know why I'm so excited for this mold. I think because instantly I was thinking of hippie vans. There's like massive van life movement happening, which people have been decking out their vans for traveling Australia, doing amazing things. But I instantly thought of one of my all-time favorite movies growing up was The Mystery Machine from Scooby-Doo. And I know that that might be corny to some, but I was like, I'm turning this into the Mystery Machine. So I think that's why I had the most fun, was because I was really excited and passionate and really just wanted to see this vision come to life. So that's what we're going with, and I'll do a couple that aren't the mystery van, but I decided to turn 2 into little pot planters. I think that these would be really good money boxes, but I didn't turn any into money boxes. I thought, I don't know why I didn't do that. I think by the time I got to them in the studio, they dried out too much. I didn't want to go ruining the lid by cutting into them when they were too dry, because it can be too dry for you to cut into. There's a point of no return where it starts cracking and you just can't get your knife into the clay. So it's really about timing and getting the right period of it being nice and soft for you to cut into. So we've got the 2 pots and then 2 simple 2 of the vans left simply with just their holes in the bottom. So I sort of debated, you can see here there's like the holes in the wheels. I kind of debated about whether to fill them up or not, but I thought because this is my first time painting these and making these, I'm going to leave the holes there because it might impact the airflow through the piece in the kiln. I'm not really sure. I just wanted to leave them just in case I didn't want to muck up anything because it's my first time using it. And with that said, every single mold is like learning a new skill. I sometimes get really worried that I'm going to stuff things up each mold reveal, and I don't really have much time to fix it if I do stuff it up. But then I've constantly been like, well, that's part of the process. Part of the process is you're not going to get it right all the time. Part of the process is that you're always learning. There's always things to learn in pottery, and there's always things to learn about new molds, the way you pour them, the way you paint them, the way you cut into them. And I think that that's where I sort of made a mistake with not turning them into a money box. Is at the time when I sort of poured them, I was like, oh, this would make a cool money box. But by that time it had already dried out. So yeah, it's just being patient with myself and letting myself learn how it works and just going with the motion of it all as I paint it. So with this first one that you can see that I'm painting now, I went in with a grey lead and sort of mapped out what I thought the mystery machine looked like. So I just sort of did like a swirly motion for that green sort of like strip that's through the center of the van, and did it mostly this like softer light blue. And I've used like a more vibrant 70s vibe green, and then all the other details I'm going to do in orange. So one mistake I did make is, I'm not sure whether you saw, I started painting over that front window. So I didn't realize that I wasn't meant to paint that blue, so I had to scrape that off. And you can kind of see that detail right here, is that I've sort of, you can see where I've marked and sponged away the blues, because I want it to be as crisp grey as I can without that blue sort of popping behind it. So that was like another mistake that I made this mold. I think that if you're not making mistakes actively and not doing silly errors in pottery, that you're never really growing and learning. So if I did every mold absolutely perfectly, there would just be no, like, I don't know, there's no room for that growth and that experimental phase where you sort of make a mistake and accidentally discover something new, or you decide that you like something that you didn't think that you would like, or maybe you do something and you thought that you were really going to like it, but then when it comes out of the kiln you really dislike it. So I think that if anything, I'm not sure whether I've spoken about this before in the series, is that making mistakes has been the biggest growth and development for me. With my usual work that I sell regularly every month, I trial for months and almost like a year to get that product right, to get my pieces right, to get my art right, to get colouring, shape, everything correct. And then once I was happy and I felt like they were at a stage where I was really in love with them, I sort of just got into a comfort zone. So like the comfort zone was, yeah, these are amazing, and I love them, and that's why they're so amazing, is that I've worked so hard to get to there. But because I've become in a comfort zone, I haven't challenged myself any way else, and I haven't allowed myself that space and that time to really just play with my craft, play with the colors, play with ideas. So this mold reveal weekly sort of challenge that I'm putting up for myself, as well as sharing it with you, has been absolutely phenomenal for growing my skills, like growing what I'm learning. And it just makes me so excited, because as I grow within myself, it means that I can learn so much that I can then pass that on to other people, and I can confidently run workshops. I can confidently share my craft with others in a way that understands not just the successes and how to do things right, but to be able to unpack what went wrong as well. And I think that's a really valuable thing about being a teacher or about sharing a craft, is not just going, this is how you do it, but also being able to go, okay, so this is where you went wrong, or this is what happened and this is why it happened. And I really love having that knowledge. Like, I think it's a really valuable thing, especially in that workshop space, because there's so many times where I have done workshops in the past or have been a part of courses, and I've gone, well, hang on, this thing happened to me. Well, like, how did that come about? And due to like inexperience, or maybe just not knowing that side of the craft or whatever it may have been, the person hasn't been able to sort of tell me what has gone wrong, rather show me how to do it the right way. And sometimes I just like knowing how I did it wrong, because that just allows me to, you know, make forward steps in the future to make it better. I don't know, maybe that's just one of my learning styles, is learning about the mistakes, but I think it becomes really valuable in that space and where I want to take my art in the future. So that's, yeah, really exciting part of this series. I really love how this mystery machine is looking. For me, Scooby-Doo was such a comfort movie. It still is such a comfort movie. It is one of those movies that when I'm feeling sad, angry, mad, upset, or maybe if I'm just like woken up and not having the best day, if I put Scooby-Doo on, like, I don't know, I just feel cleansed. I just feel suddenly uplifted and amazing again. And it's just one of those few movies for me, like The Princess Diaries or 10 Things I Hate About You. Just really easygoing movies that sort of have a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of humour, all mixed into one. A little bit problematic when I look back at them now with the knowledge that I have, but an absolute comfort movie. I don't know if you've got a comfort movie. You can let me know in the comments, because I love comfort movies. I think they're the best. Like anything Disney as well is always so good. But yeah, I'm going to paint for a little bit. I was going to let it not be talking for most of it, but I've ended up talking for most of it again. But I'll chime back in when it's time to glaze, and then we'll have the reveal of the finished product. it is time to glaze these big rigs up. So what happened was when I put them into bisque fire, it was to set the underglaze in place so that when I dip them in the clear gloss glaze, it doesn't sort of smudge all the line work I've just done. But when I pulled them out of the bisque, it's really hard to see, but there's a really tiny hairline crack through the hole. So I'm going to try and cover this with glaze, but there is a big probability that this is going to expand and open up in the high heat of the last firing. Which means that this is going to be a very big crack, but we're just going to send it through the kiln anyway because I've gotten this far, and it doesn't look like it's going to explode and break the other pieces if it sort of expands. So when I pack them in the kiln, unfortunately some of the bits of the wheels is sort of like dragged off onto the kiln shelf, so I touched them up with a little bit more black underglaze, and then I went in with some wax resist onto the wheels because I was thinking how I was going to glaze these. It was best to just sort of like dunk them. I was really not sure how to do it, so I was just like, I'll just put some wax resist on these little wheels so that it the glaze doesn't stick to them. As you can see there, it's come out without the glaze on the wheel, and then hope for the best that it doesn't stick. It was really hard work trying to make sure that the glaze didn't get on the wheels and trying to keep them nice and clean and glossy and covered. I just really like the aesthetic of a gloss glaze. I find it really amazing for me. So I really wanted to make sure it was nice and clean. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous for how that wax resist has worked and whether like the glaze will drip out of the wheel holes that I've left. I don't know, like I'm not sure how these are going to go. I'm actually really nervous about them now. So packing them in the kiln was a little bit of Tetris. I ended up only doing the layer of the vans, so it was a very uneconomical kiln. If that's the word, because usually I'll have a couple shelves, I'll stack it to the brim with stuff so that I make it the most affordable option for it to run and the most environmentally impactful way of doing it. But yeah, unfortunately I couldn't fit these in time to have a second shelf. So yeah, that's what we're going to do, but it sort of goes to show why I need a new studio and need a bigger kiln, because this is like really frustrating sometimes, is that I have a lot of work that I want to fire at once. Like I have a whole shelf waiting for glaze, a whole shelf waiting for bisque, and I've literally just got to slowly pace them out night after night. So I Tetris them all in and get them all parked in their right parking spot. I use 2 fingers, as I just showed, to measure whether they're touching. This just gives a good sort of like gauge to make sure that when they expand they're not going to bump into each other. But I opened the kiln and they look so groovy. I am so happy with this result. So the first one is the purple one. This one's my least favorite just because of the detail in it. It was just a simple look, just so I could see what it might look like, some future potential to using this mold, and just to keep it like really basic, I guess, is that you don't have to put heaps of detail on it all the time. As you can see, that crack opened right up as we expected, and also the wax resist underglaze touch-ups did not work. It didn't work. Another mistake. I feel like this video is riddled with mistakes today. So that was a bit unfortunate. That was a learning thing as well. I can usually put underglaze on the shelves, but for this piece it just did not work with that glazing through the holes of the wheels. But yeah, something that I'll learn for in the future. And the crack is just something that comes with practice and time, and sometimes you still make mistakes even when you're experienced. So that's just one of those things that you've just got to learn to say goodbye to that piece, as it's not the most perfect one. The yellow one is living its hippie dream lifestyle, and I am in love with it. This is something I would seek out in the shops. It is a pot, so I'm excited to put my succulents inside, and I have no qualms. It came out really lovely, but my absolute favorite is this. Wow, like this is so groovy. I am so impressed that I've brought this vision to life. Like, my excitement has literally been measured up with the finished piece. Like, my overall excitement of how I was looking forward to seeing the finished result has actually been met with the finished result, and I'm so impressed. I love the little number plate with zoinks on it. I love the mystery machine, the little hubcaps with the flower details. I love that it's got my own spin on it too, that it's not just a direct copy, that it's like got my own style flared in with it. So I popped some little succulents in it from my garden. I just cut them back because they're overgrowing everywhere, and these look awesome. I am so happy with them, and of course I had to take them out for a test drive, right? A new car, got to test drive it, and here it is, going for a ride. I'm such a dag. Anyway, let me know what you thought of this mold in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for part 25.